It was difficult and painful. I suffered a lot. Previously, I was treated with affection by everyone in my family. But that all changed. I was neglected and I became a burden to everyone. Life became much better for me once I was given my wheelchair. I used to be totally dependent on others, but now I can get out and move around. I received income generation training from a local development agency in growing vegetables and rearing chickens and ducks, then purchased a hand sewing machine and now draw an income by tailoring garments for people in my village. My house was modified to meet my basic needs, such as sanitation, making safe drinking water, and my lavatory accessible. It was also raised to reduce the impact of the floods. When it comes to floods and other disasters, people with disabilities are particularly vulnerable. There is generally widespread panic, and in many cases, a person with a disability is forgotten and left behind. So now I am part of a disaster preparedness committee, and we've made a list of all people with a disability in our area, and we can take immediate steps to locate and evacuate them. I am also responsible for educating people about hygiene and general health for when the waters hit, such as how to protect their food against insects and contamination. Previously, I was afraid of the prospect of flooding, but now that we are prepared, I know what to do and I can face it. Now I am no longer a burden to my family, and I am proud that I am a valuable and contributing member of my community.
বৈশ্বিক জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের ফলে বাংলাদেশ এখন একটি অন্যতম দুর্যোগপ্রবণ দেশ। এই দুর্যোগের ক্ষয়ক্ষতি কমাতে প্রয়োজন দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলার কৌশল ও প্রস্তুতি। এশিয়ান ডিজাস্টার প্রিপেয়ারনেস সেন্টার এডিপিসি সহযোগী সংস্থাসমূহের সমন্বয়ে বাংলাদেশের 3টি জেলায় স্ট্রেনদেনিং এমার্জেন্সি প্রিপেয়ারনেস অ্যান্ড রেজিলিয়েন্স ইন বাংলাদেশ সার্ট প্রকল্প চালিয়ে আসছে।
I'm Oktavi from the National Disaster Management Authority of Indonesia. So, ladies and gentlemen, Asia Disaster Management and Civil Protection Expo and Conference, or ADEXCO, is an international exhibition that connects companies, governments, and stakeholders to showcase their thought leadership, expertise, and products for disaster management. Co-located with Construction Indonesia and Water Indonesia, the 4th edition of ADEXCO endeavors to underscore Indonesia's commitment to becoming a model for sustainable disaster resilience through an integrated and inclusive approach, where civil protection plays a central role in ensuring the safety and well-being of the population. The co-location of these shows is strategically designed to address and mitigate the unique challenges posed by natural disasters and threats within these interconnected sectors.
Today's regional dialogue shall focus on operationalizing sustainable resilience, a concept promoted by the Indonesian government, and this will cover both Asia and the Pacific regions. We will highlight 3 pillars of sustainable resilience demonstrated by 3 panel discussions. First, governance. Second, public, private, and multilateral finance. And third, local leadership. Cutting across these 3 pillars, will be the innovation presentations on climate smart technology for early warning, as well as nature-based solutions for climate adaptation and urban resilience.
And before we begin, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. First of all, please ensure that your mobile phones and devices are switched to silent mode. And we kindly ask that you remain seated during the presentations and talk show seasons. And for the Q&A session, in-person participants may raise their hand and ask questions directly, while online participants are welcome to type their questions in the chat box of Zoom meeting. Thank you for your cooperation to help keep today's seminar smooth and enjoyable for everyone.
And now, to kickstart our first panel discussion on governance, that is on multi-risk, multi-sector, and multi-stakeholder systems for integrated and inclusive decision-making, may I now call the Executive Director of the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, Mr. Aslam Perwez. Aslam, please. Mr. Aslam currently holds the position of the Executive Director at the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center. He has more than 19 years of work in ADPC. And for those who are here, an inspiration to all of us, rising from the ranks from being a coordinator to being a Deputy Executive Director and now our Executive Director in the organization. Mr. Aslam has vast experience and involvement in regional and global initiatives across Asia, Pacific, and the Africa. Aslam, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ronilda and Tavia, for a very good warm-up. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Actually, it's my privilege that I have been a participant and a panelist for all the previous EDEXO meeting that has taken place. I think this is the fourth one that in a row I'm attending. That way, I'm not what we call hesitant to say that I have seen this whole change in the last since 2022. And I must tell you that among many of the regional events that I attend, this is one of the one very focused on what we really want to discuss and how we actually communicate. As you have seen in today's agenda, let me just give you a little perspective. I come from Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, and nicely put by my colleague Rao. I'm heading the organization, but 20 years ago, I joined the organization in the very first position. Over the last 20 years, and of course within the 40 years of ADPC, one of the important things that we have learned that we actually have helped building regional collaborations by strengthening both national and sub-national capacities. I'm very happy also to share with you that ADPC's footprint in the ASEAN member states, and today we would also bring you some of our member states participants and panelists during the entire day. We have about 3 panel discussion and 2 upfront sessions. We also would like to share with you the experience from another region, which is South Asia as well as in the Pacific. So we today have a very good mix of participants from all the regional entities that we have. And I'm very happy that at least all our current ACDM chair, Cambodia, is being represented by Mr. Sochit, and of course, Indonesia is the incoming one. And of course, now we also have our colleague from Timor-Leste, and who certainly would be the 11th member of the ASEAN. And we are very happy also to share with you that we're working very closely with CPA, and particularly in a province, very important work on a localization that you have heard. Very quickly for this particular panel discussion, we have only about 11:30 from now. The focus is more on the governance, and I think my colleague already explained you about the concept of sustainable resilience. And I think successively since Bali, together with BNPB and under the leadership of Paraditya, my friend as well as my mentor, all the time the whole concept of sustainable resilience revolves around how we put together the different silo approach of resilience building into one. We keep talking infrastructure resilience, we keep talking about social resilience, we talk about disaster resilience, we talk about climate resilience. And this is what came in Bali by our Pak Jokowi. I call it very fondly. I don't actually recall the full name all the time. And this concept since then become an integral part of Asian disaster preparedness centers, both regional and national level implementation. Successively from 2022, sustainable resilience has been one of the components in our regional consultative committee meeting, which is the top level technical committee on regional cooperation on disaster management. But at the same time, I am also happy to share with you that all our program, particularly targeting national capacity building and local one, we are also trying to define or demystifying this whole issue that, how you really make what we call these 4 key drivers of cultivating a culture of risk awareness, investing in science and innovation, developing resilient infrastructure, and localizing global framework, keeping the community at the forefront. Last year, on the eve of the 20 years of tsunami in the same dais, we talked a lot about this, and today we are now further, what we call it, we're coming to at the local level, most of the discussion today, even at the governance and the next 3 sessions, we are actually trying to attempt from various experiences of our panelists that in how this subject of sustainable resilience can be operationalized in a real manner with the help of improving governance, finance, and local leadership. So with this, let me not take too much time, and it is really my honor first to invite my keynote speaker, Dr. Engineer Medilzam. He is the Deputy Minister for Regional Development, Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas. Pa Medilzam has been for 2 decades of experience in environmental management, climate policy, and sustainable development, and of course, in shaping the Indonesia's climate change and negotiations, particularly on forestry policies. He has been one of the forefront, and of course, his experience with water resource conservation, and as well as at different places at the UNFCCC's conferences. So I would like to invite Pa Medilzam to come and deliver the keynote address, and then after that we will go for the panel discussion. Pa Medilzam.
Your Excellencies, Pak Raditya Jati, Deputy for System and Strategy of BNPB, and also my colleague Pak Udrek, my long friend, and all representative of national disaster management agencies. And Pak Aslam, the Executive Director of the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, or we usually call it ADPC. And also all the panelists, Mr. Mariano from Timor-Leste, Ibu Rianti, my long friend. Now you're in the ASEAN Secretariat. And also Mr. Abu Naim Sahidullah from Bangladesh. And also our senior, Pak Puji Pujiono, the founder and our founder and senior advisor of Pujiono Center. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to all of you. And first of all, let us express our praise and gratitude to God Almighty because by His grace and blessings, we can gather in this collaborative space in these morning sessions. First of all, I would like to thank Pak Radit, who also inviting me to give a keynote speech today. I think you should be standing here as well, Pak Radit. Thank you very much. And I also would like to extend a warm welcome to Jakarta and my deepest appreciation for your active participations in ADEXCO 2025. This regional dialogue is a tangible demonstration of our collective commitment to building a safer and a more resilient future for Asia and Pacific region. Our theme today, as mentioned by Pak Aslam, actually operationalizing sustainable resilience, governance, finance, and local leaderships for a safer future. This is very, very highly relevant for our today case. This is a call for actions, not just a, we usually call in Indonesia, not just omon-omon, not just a talk. Actually, this is a call to actions to move from just a commitment and policies, actually, to concrete and sustainable implementations on the ground. This is what we have, what we are today. Well, based on the data that we have, actually, we take the note from the Asia Pacific Disaster Report from UNESCAP in 2023. As you see in the chart that in 2022 alone, more than 140 disasters struck the regions in Asia Pacific. Well, you can name it: earthquake, floods, landslide, cyclone, tropical cyclone, heat waves, causing over 7,500 deaths and affecting more than 64 million of people. Of course, there have been a lot of economic loss, and there is a kind of estimate here, 57 billion US dollar have been lost here. And of course, these economic losses are higher compared to other regions, and this number continue to rise over year. Well, this situation is exacerbated by climate change, of course, which not only increase the frequency and intensity of existing disasters, but also triggers the emergence of a new risk maps, characterized by very complex, multi-layer, and cascading disasters. These threats reach key sectors. As you might be aware, we are very concerned on agriculture right now. Agriculture must be affected very much. Energy, potentially disrupting food systems and pushing millions of people into poverty. I believe without immediate actions, disaster risk will surpass our resilience capacity, threatening the achievement of our sustainable development. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 2.5 years ago in Bali, we have a big gathering for GPDRR 2022, and we have a very concrete global commitment which emphasizes that the disaster risk reductions is not a side agenda, but a very fundamental investment for our sustainable development. The core message is clear. We must integrate disaster risk reductions into all mainstream development process and governance. This is very crucial. Actually, we try to implement this in Indonesia very hard. In this session, we will be discussing as well about our the role of local leadership as well. Well, today we would like to focus on governance as the key foundations for realizing this commitment. Yeah. The journey toward ideal disaster governance still faces substantial challenges that often become barriers to achieve resilience. To address these complex challenges, we propose a strategic agenda centered on strengthening disaster preparedness. First, integrated and holistic governance. We can no longer work in silo sectors. We know that hydrometeorological disasters, geological, biological threats, these are all threats are interconnected. Therefore, the whole of government, the whole of society approach is no longer an option, but a necessity. This is a must. And we believe national and regional development planning must systematically incorporate disaster risk assessments into its concept and its plan in the real manner. And we know that this plan, not just only about a plan, this must be also translated into our spatial planning as well. In Indonesia, we are doing it very hard and we're still struggling to achieve this better, but we have already started to initiate this. And the second one, this is also important, data and science-driven governance. Well, building resilience requires smart and informed decisions, investing in multi-hazard early warning system, collecting reliable risk data, and also developing disaster scenario. These are all the key. This data must be easily accessible and actionable by decision makers at all levels, from the central to the local governance. Good governance is informed governance, enabling us to shift from reactions to anticipations and preventions. This is, I would like to underline that we have a very good early warning system right now, but we realize translating this early warning system into early actions, this is still a homework for us. You know that we have a very informative early warning, but usually we are a bit late to anticipate this early warning. When disasters happens, that's then we react. It's a bit late. So early actions right now become our priority, transforming informations from early warning to early actions. This is a very crucial step right now, and it must be needed technology there. Third, inclusive governance and empowering local leaderships. This is also crucial. I talked this morning to Bu Rianti about the role, the important roles of the local leaders. This is not non-negotiable principle. Local leaders must be informed and must be well aware about their situations, about their risks on disasters, on the impact of the disasters. And we know that we're just not talk about preparedness, but with the local leaders, we should also be talking about building back better for post-disasters. This is also crucial. And the fourth, this is also important because this is about governance that integrates smart financings. We know that there have been talks, a lot of talks about financings, but usually when I negotiate in the UNFCCC, we talk a lot about financing. But of course, between West and East, North and South, complexity about financing is there. And there have been a lot of discussion about it. But we believe right now there are a lot of innovative financing happens. And when we discuss with big institutions like World Bank, they have a lot of schemes that quite creative, that quite innovative, that, well, it's involved a lot of aspects, a lot of players that have a kind of willingness to join in this innovative financing. I just want to mention about, for examples, coral bonds, for example. This is not a regular bonds, but this is a World Bank bonds. And this is not a state bond. So the government does not have to carry over the burden on this bond. But to improve the quality of our coral reef, well, there have been very innovative schemes, financing scheme like this coral bonds. There are many others. Debt for nature swap, for example. And right now we have been talking about biodiversity credits. So I don't know, probably in natural disaster preparedness financing landscapes, probably we should be also talking about how then we could manage this innovative financings. Well, I won't take too much time in this session, but ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia government remains committed to supporting global and regional disasters risk reduction agenda, and we really hope through ADEXCO, we hope to strengthen our cross-border dialogue to share best practices, innovations, and experience in building disasters resilience. Let us use the momentum of ADEXCO 2025 as a stepping stone to create and to accelerate our collective actions. In closing, allow me to express my appreciation to all those who have supported ADEXCO 2025. Let us make this forum a platform to strengthen collaborations, accelerate concrete actions, and realize our shared visions for a safer and more sustainable future in Asia Pacific. Finally, I would like also to thank all those who have contributed to the organizations of this important event. I hope our meeting today is productive and full of brilliant ideas, and I hope our discussion today as well will result in a concrete steps toward sustainable disaster resilience. Please enjoy a productive dialogue, and thank you for your intentions. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Melzam. I know that you have to leave for an important meeting, but before you leave, just as a remembrance, I would like my fellow panelists, Pak Puji, Dr. Rianti, Mr. Naims, and Mr. Marino to come over the dais first, and we just take a photo before you vanish. And I also take the liberty, Pa Milzam, that I will summarize this particular panel on your behalf. So maybe if you can just come for a photo session first, then we do the remaining session. Can also come, and we also can say Salam Pagu, correct? Should we say? Salam? Tangguh, yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe our panelists may remain on the dais. And thank you, Pa Milzam, and thank you very much. So maybe now you can take a seat. Maybe Dr. Rianti, may I invite you formally to come on dais? Papuji and Mr. Moreno, let's come, and we have a slight delay in that particular one. I do not want any chance to come to the topic. So here is the panel for the next 45 minutes odd. And we certainly would like to have the next session starting on time. So with me, of course, how I introduce, because I have almost about 2 pages each about each of my panelists. But I think just to give a little bit of introduction from my side, I know Dr. Rianti for almost about a decade now. Of course, currently she is at the ASEAN Secretariat as the Assistant Director, Disaster Management and the Humanitarian Assistance. I think the entire implementation of ADMA coordination with all our member countries. Besides that, her own quest of knowledge in disaster management, I'm quite impressed, her PhD and her all work outside the work. So I'm very privileged to introduce you, Dr. Rianti, to the panel. Next is Mr. Abu Naeem Muhammad Sahidullah, currently the advisor of the Safety Council, Federation of Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We just have been talking that over the last 35 years, Brigadier Naeem at different professional positions in Bangladesh, and particularly recently with this FBCCI, has been a champion of bringing disaster resilience in not only in private sector, but also ensuring that the private sector speaks to the government and the government speaks to the private sector on a regular time. I think in order of the presentation, I thought I will introduce Dr. Puji Pujiono at the end, but I think let me do it. I don't think that I need to introduce him all. Every time we say he is the founder of the Pujiono Center, but that's it's a very small introduction. For all of us, I think I know him since 2001, the year when we were talking about the phasing out of the IDNDR, when disaster management was taking the paradigm shift from response-oriented to risk management system. And I'm quite privileged that over the last 25 years, I have seen him in the same shape, same state of mind, and the same charm. And I'm really happy that I'm moderating the session, Puji, with you. And of course, we have Mr. Mariano Ana Lopez from Timor-Leste, is the Director of Civil Protection Authorities Timor-Leste. And I'm very happy that he has been with the CPA for a number of years, and over the last 15 years of experience in disaster risk management in the country. And currently we also collaborate with you, sir, for the small work that we are doing. And I'm also very happy that you are able to make it, and we are looking forward for Timor-Leste to be the member of ASEAN very soon. And I think we all then will become an 11-member very powerful community. So with this, I think, introduction, let me just jump to the session today, the panel discussion. What we actually trying to focus on this one is basically that governance is one of the key issue. And the following one you will hear about financing, then on the localization one. For this one, I think let me start by having that, what are the guiding questions that we would like you to focus. One is that, what governance gaps and international barriers most limit integrated approach to disaster risk reduction. How these governance in gap actually limit in inclusive disaster risk management. Some of the institutional models in your experience in your country, and also how private sector can play a very, very inclusive role in decision making. So maybe let me start with Dr. Rianti. I think you have about 8 to 10 minutes, Dr. Rianti. And I think the experience of ASEAN region, not only within ASEAN region, but for the rest of both developing and developed nation, is very important to hear, learn, act, and also assess. And I am also congratulating you for now starting the next ADMA work plan, and we all assure you that we will always be with you in the next ADMA work plan implementation starting from next year. Okay, so Ibu Dr. Rianti, over to you.
So thank you, Mr. Aslam. May I kindly request for my slide to be shown, slide number 2 on institutional structure of ASEAN. So first of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I would like to thank Indonesia for the invitation for this event. Of course, particularly to Deputy Minister Dr. Raditya Jati of BNPB, also ED of ADPC Mr. Aslam, and Deputy Minister Dr. Medrilisam of Bapenas. We wish to highlight, yes, that's the slide. Next slide, please. So we wish to highlight that Indonesia, during their ASEAN chairmanship in 2023, champion the issuance of this ASEAN Leaders Declaration on Sustainable Resilience, and this is where I will highlight some of the key leadership that Indonesia has contributed to the strengthening of institutional structure and the work of ASEAN in disaster management region. So answering the first question on what institutional models, partnership, and technologies in the region that show promise of advancing integrated governance. We have to say ASEAN has this vision to be the global leaders in disaster management. And one of the key issues that enables ASEAN to envision this goal of being a global leaders in disaster management is through this very robust institutional structure and mechanism that allow for disaster management and also other sectors to then advance through an integrated manner, and of course starting with across nation regional cooperation. So as you can see from this slide, the regional disaster management effort is implemented through a shared vision of a resilient ASEAN, and this is guided in the ASEAN Agreement on Disaster Management and Emergency Response. So ADMER, I think, is the only or even the first legally binding agreement on disaster management in the world. And even during that time, it was the first one in the world to have this, a legally binding agreement on disaster management. So having ADMER ensures the clarity of coordination, implementation of strategic policy, coordination, planning, cross-sectoral cooperation, partnerships, and technical implementation. This is something that I think ASEAN, can really share the experience on how we can strengthen governance and allow highest level commitment from the leaders level, ministers, and going down so that we can have an integrated governance. So if you see this institutional structure, beyond, beneath the leaders, starting at the ministerial level, we have this ministerial meeting on disaster management. This ministerial meeting also acts as the conference of parties to the ADMER. So anything that needs to be implemented, with 6 highest level coordination and guidance will need to be, discussed at the ministerial level. And the mechanism for a yearly meeting and coordination, collaboration, it allows for this to take place. At the regional level, if you see next to the AMMDM, we have Secretary General of ASEAN, who also acts as the ASEAN Humanitarian Assistance Coordinator. We have seen this mechanism gets implemented. Of course, this SG-AHAC mechanism was started or initiated based on the experience when the tsunami 2004 occurred, and then immediately after that, the leaders has this special meeting and also, allow for the SG of ASEAN to then do resource mobilization, coherent communication and coordination amongst within ASEAN, but also, ensuring that ASEAN is able to support the affected member state, as one. And this is, I think, another case or example of how integrated governance on disaster management can take place. At the operational level, we have ASEAN Committee on Disaster Management. At the current year, we have Cambodia as the chair and Indonesia as the vice chair. And next year, Indonesia will be the chair of ACDM and AMMDM. This is an opportunity, I think, for Indonesia to then brings or elevate this ASEAN Leaders Declaration on Sustainable Resilience into right to the local level or strengthening institution. This is something which also I think as guided by Dr. Medrisam before, how can we bring all these international, regional, or even national planning and activities to localization. This is of course something that even at the ASEAN level, we still try to see, how best a regional institution can also still contribute locally at the local level. The third mechanism that I wish to highlight is, if you see those in red towards the bottom of the figure, we have within ASEAN increasingly cross-sector mechanism. 5 minutes, yes. Cross-sector mechanism. We have ASEAN Disaster Resilience Platform. And this is also another new mechanism that we see, very interesting and get accepted by, formally. What this platform do, it brings 13 sectoral bodies. So when we say ASEAN sectoral bodies, this is like ministries or departments that have some component on disaster management and disaster resilience and humanitarian assistance. So by having this mechanism, at the ASEAN level, we can only do things, communicate, cooperate if there is this formal mechanism, and ADRP is another example of this mechanism in which 13 sectoral bodies in ASEAN, so from gender, women, agriculture, you name it, or even political sector, come together twice a year to discuss what are the relevance of disaster management or how they contribute in building resilience to disaster management. Okay, can we go to the next slide? I think this is a last example that I wish to share. Recently, we issue in May, during the ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur, the ASEAN 2045, our shared future was issued. And within this, this document, we can see increasingly a cross-sector, active cross-pillar now. Cross-pillar when we mean political sector, economic sector, socioculture, this integration take place even more, vividly. For example, in the ASEAN political political and security community pillar, a strategic plan, their 20 years work plan, they have looked at how, implementation of one ASEAN, one response, joint strategic AJDRP, joint disaster. It's a document that looks at, how can different sectors can contribute when there is emergencies in the region. So we see this contribution, cross-sector interlinkages taking place. Within the planning document of the economic pillar, they look at on how to strengthen insurance and financing that allows for the countries and the region have this capacity to respond, when there is a major disaster occurred. So this is something that we see clearly in the last 10 years, and also done as guided in the 20 years will take place more prominently on this cross-sector, cross-spiral, cross-governance cooperation. So Dr. Aslam, I think this is something that I wish to highlight some example from the ASEAN level on how this integrated governance have been taking place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rianti. I will come back to the second question after the second, first all the panelists spoke. I think let me just quickly dive into the private sector engagement. I think this is one of the subject last 20 years has gained a lot of traction, very good examples, and I think Bangladesh is one of the country actually has championed in terms of having public-private partnership to now what we call the private sector resilience. This is where private sector not only contributes to the national government's disaster risk management activities, but they themselves also do work to be resilient from the various indicators. Of course, profitability, economic is one of them, but from a disaster management perspective, they are also the one get affected. And once they get affected, I think the entire country gets affected. So maybe I will just hand it over to Mr. Naeem and his remarks. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Well, thank you, Aslam. Before I get into the point, this FBCCI, Federation of Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce and Industries, is in fact a apex body of the business community as well as representing the private sector. So, I am, in fact, is the department head of the FBCCI Safety Council, which deals with the disaster in anywhere that affects the private sector, especially the business community. In fact, Bangladesh government has got a standing order on disaster where FBCCI is also included and task is given. And this SOD, every government department, even these private departments are also given the responsibility of what to do before the disaster, during the disaster, and after the disaster. So this inclusiveness in the SOP, followed by the 5 years plan of action on disaster is prepared by the Ministry of Disaster in Bangladesh. And every time when they are drafting it, the private sector is also called in to support, to share ideas and share the pain that we feel once the disaster is on. So this is what, in fact, FBCCI. Now, I will just quote an example that was Rana Plaza disaster where my friend was also there. And in fact, Rana Plaza building collapse was a man-made disaster where 1,100 workers died in one incident. Then the whole nation was jerked. The nation, the Prime Minister took initiative, changing the compliance issues. Safety issue has been taken very seriously, and by now, we have in eco-friendly structure or the industry, if you say, in the world, we are now a champion. How you know? It is good about more than 250 green factory certified by US LEED certification we have received. Out of 10 top grade compliance RMG, ready-made garments, out of 10 in the world, 9 is situated in Bangladesh. So this is how the RMG on ready-made garments sector, this private sector has come up to this level of the world. So it has, how it has come, it is just because of the initiative of the government, followed by initiative of the business community, and supported by the international community as well. The buyers also came forward to help us. The second example that I like to quote is, it was just in 2021 when a juice factory, it is beside the non-RMG sector I'm talking about. The juice factory got a devastating fire incident where 54 workers died. And thereafter, in fact, immediately government decided that to find out the condition of non-RMG sector, because RMG sector has progressed so fast, and in a world-class position, but non-RMG sector of Bangladesh was really in shambles. And thereafter, a team was formulated, all the government inspectors were brought together, and within that, the private sector also was included. And it was a unique combination of all the inspectors who carried out the inspection and the survey of the non-RMG sectors. And within 1 year time, 10,000 factory has been visited. And in fact, the safety condition has improved tremendously. So, and third example that I like to quote is that the FBCCI Safety Council, that is what I'm heading, with the support of ADPC, in fact, we took out 3 model districts, because our structure, the FBCCI, is there in every district. So the 3 disaster-prone districts we have chosen, and we have supported this Chamber of Commerce to have safety cell to coordinate. This is the, in fact, communication hub, a coordination hub to communicate with and coordinate with the government agencies and the FBCCI Safety Council. And under that, we have created one emergency, private sector emergency team, PRT, Private Sector Emergency Disaster Team, in fact, is built. This team is comprising of the local communities and the business people. They are trained to not only respond to the disaster, but also to make sure the business continuity during the crisis. So that is the beauty of this combination of the safety cell and the disaster emergency response team. And if it comes out successful, because the government is helping us, the disaster ministry is taking the lead, Bangladesh BPP, Bangladesh Preparedness Partnership is created, where the ADPC is helping us, and we came forward just because this governance system is activated. So I like to say that once we talk about the disaster, we know that it has got no international boundary. It can affect not only the country, but beyond that. At the same time, it is not only practically feasible for a government to handle a big crisis or disaster so efficiently until unless it is addressed or supported by all the communities, the private sector especially. So inclusiveness of this private sector is no more an option, but it has to be addressed to get the fruitful result within a short possible time, within a short economic losses. We need to integrate private sector in disaster management system. Thank you, Aslam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naeem, and I think very good example in Bangladesh, but as in our ASEAN, we also have this ASEAN Business Advisory Council, and a lot of the steps has been also taken to take disaster risk into the business community. Papuji, 35 years since the start of IDNDR, when we were talking about should we continue to respond to disaster, which we're actually doing. Even I think I heard Paraditya leaving for Bali during the weekend, leaving the family, you know, waiting for him. But I think our chief of BNPB is already in Bali. There is an ongoing flood going. So that means we continue to respond to disaster, but the whole shift that, you know, how best a governance system or a governance mechanism perhaps in the last 35 years in these 3 successive global framework, nobody other than Papuji can bring what are some of the good or bad examples of good or bad governance that has shaped disaster resilience or sustainable resilience. Over to you, Papuji.
Thank you, Pak Aslam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. As mentioned, my name is Puji Pujono. I am a senior advisor. Now, pay attention to the word senior. It means old. Okay. I've been in this business since 1984, and 25 years of them with the United Nations. 5 years with ASEAN. The UN in the field, in the headquarters, at the Regional Commission. You know, I've been around. That's how old I am, right? So I think it's right to tell story from the old man's perspective. Let me tell you, starting with this dice here. I met Aslam when he was very young, about 30 years ago. He was a coordinator of a project somewhere, right? I met Dr. Yanti when she was still working with local government in Sulawesi. I was already in the Regional Commission in the UN. That's how old I am. I met General Naim when I was an international program manager in Bangladesh, operating $80 million comprehensive disaster management. And we commissioned the Bangladesh Fire Department, and he was the boss. That's how old I am. This young man here, Marino Lopez, we rebuilt the disaster management office in Timor-Leste after the war. I did the first training, restructure, and so on. And he is the third generation from Timor-Leste. That's how old I am, okay, in this business. That being said, I've been around and seen things. I have heard the first time when people say disaster is everybody's business. Have you heard that? We translated that document in Indonesia. We talk about it in Kobe, all right? And as true, at that point, we were able to promote the word disaster is everybody's business. But the implication that everybody is doing something about disasters. Every single person is doing it, every single agency is. Not quite sure how to coordinate them. So this seems to be the first generation of consciousness about disasters. Because before that one, disaster was, maybe God is angry with you. Maybe you're doing something wrong with the nature. And then later, we realized disaster is actually part of development. You do your development not correctly, and that's why there's a disaster. So when Paradit talk about sustainable resilience, meaning you need to fix it right at the core, not just dealing with the consequences. So the first generation of governance, in my observations, is when everybody's doing something about disaster, but not necessarily being coordinated. In the case of ASEAN, in the year 2001, ASEAN had, I'm sorry, I'm just talking about your office. ASEAN, what we had back then was expert group discussion on disaster every 2 years. When I came in, I gave them 3 offers that they could not refuse. Instead of meeting every 2 years, what if I make you meet every 6 months? That way, then you always remember what you committed 6 months ago, right? To cut a long story short, that's what happened into ASEAN and become what it is now. So from everybody's doing disaster separately, now they're banding together into some sort of platform, all right? They still hold their own portfolio, but now they're working in a common platform. That to me is the second generation. In the case of Indonesia, you have the Bakornas at the time, where all departments have their own business, but there is one coordinating body, right? But that coordinating body is not necessarily as powerful as you want it to be. The third generation is after the Hyogo, when I went with some of you here to Kobe, to the World Conference, the second one, and we agree in Kobe that we need to establish a tenda, large enough for everyone to come in, not only government, not only scientists, not only NGOs, but everybody. And my word back then was, it has to be a sandbox large enough for all the kids to play. All right? And then that's what become the global platform that you see. You have the Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference, and in Indonesia we have the National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. So the third generation to me is a platform. The fourth generation of governance is when disaster becomes so inevitable, it's so obvious that the country feels the need to establish particular agency. In the case of Bangladesh, you establish Ministry of Disaster. In the case of Timor-Leste, this is one of the departments within the Ministry of Defense. There is a civil defense, right, and disaster. In the case of Indonesia, now you establish BNPB as a specialized agency. This is where you see in the fourth generation, the business is consolidated into one particular body. It has a plus and minuses. The good thing is that now somebody is thinking about disaster all the time because it's their business. The downside of it is everybody think, well, now it's your job. It's BNPB's job. In the case of Bangladesh, it's the ministry's job. I no longer have anything to do with disasters. That's the downside. Now, the fifth generation, my friends, are the, how do you say, it's a coherence within planning. So you remain to be in your department and ministry, but the way you plan, and this is what Pak Raditya would like to see in front of us, each of the ministry is assumed to have the stake in the game. Now, what BNPB would work with Bapanas is to make sure that all those pieces fit. But we don't need to change your portfolio. The public work remain to do what your public works are doing. The Ministry of Economy is doing what Ministry of Economy is doing. In the case of Bangladesh, as I said, we have $80 million to work with all the ministries, including the fire department, the science and technology, the military, everybody, all right? To bring them together into a planning regime. So that within a planning regime of medium-term development plan, you have the disaster not only being mentioned specifically, but you can find the red thread throughout all development planning and programming. So those are the 5 regimes of governance that I observed for the last 45 years, all right? Now, what's coming next? I don't know. I hope I live for 100 years. Maybe I will see the next generation of the governance. But so far, those are the 5 things. And next time, we'll talk about which one is actually best. Thank you, Aslan.
Thank you very much, Papuji. Going through what we call the walking the talk. I think this is very, very important. I think the current status I also acknowledge, and thanks to our regional entities, particularly the ASEAN Secretariat, you know, this improving the quality within the national government's governance system, not only the Ministry of Disaster Management, but related sectors. I think it has been a quite remarkable achievement. We have to achieve much more. And now maybe pass it on to Mr. Marino. And as a small island nation, you know, resources are always a challenge, correct, Pa Marino? And now very soon you will become what we call one ASEAN, one community, the newest member. Certainly we welcome, and ADPC particularly would always be with you while this transition takes place, and we really very happy. But I think it is important for our audience to hear, and I know that you also speak Bahasa very well. So feel comfortable, because I don't understand, but I pick up most of the word. But I think most of my audience here understand Bahasa very well. So maybe your reflections in the next 5 to 7 minutes, Pak Marino.
Thank you, Mr. Salam. Selamat pagi semuanya. Terima kasih untuk BNPB, Pak Raditya, Pak Radit, sama dengan teman-temannya. Terima kasih juga, thank you for ADPC as you invited Timor-Leste to join this important event. Oktober ini Timor-Leste akan jadi full member ASEAN. Jadi terima kasih sekali untuk dukungan dari semua anggota ASEAN yang selama ini udah mendukung Timor-Leste dan nggak sampai 1 bulan lagi kita akan jadi anggota ASEAN sepenuhnya. Terima kasih untuk semuanya. Ya, seperti kita ketahui bahwa Timor Leste juga rentan terhadap bencana alam, kan kita sama-sama di satu region yang bencana yang ada di Timor Leste sama seperti juga di Indonesia, ada landslide, flooding, gempa bumi, dan kemarau panjang. Jadi saya akan paparkan bahwa gaps dan challenge yang kita dapatkan di Timor Leste, seperti yang kita ketahui bahwa the Civil Protection Authority adalah institusi yang sebagai tanggung jawab untuk koordinasi pada bencana alam. Di sini sebelumnya seperti Pak Puji bilang awalnya kita dibantu oleh Pak Puji untuk mendirikan Badan Penanggulangan Bencana kita. Related to the question, so the gaps and challenge in DRR governance system in Timor-Leste, the gaps are as follows: the institutional gaps, capacity gaps, and the community gaps. What the institutional gaps? The weak coordination mechanism across the governmental entities, no formalized and institutionalized SOP and standard for national alert and warning to the public and for operational teams. And second, no formalized, standardized, and institutionalized SOP and regulation for loss and damage framework, and leaving a data gap that's important for the reporting, planning, and more. And third one, absence of full institutionalized national emergency response plans and the disaster risk reduction strategy. For the capacity gaps, the insufficient and unpredictable funding for response missions, including programs or projects, and insufficient equipment for emergency response, including a fully functional emergency operations center and communication systems. The gaps is sustained capacity building and technical training for national and municipal DRM staff. For the community gaps, the community-based disaster risk reduction programs are largely donor-driven and not consistently institutionalized. How can they be overcome? So the first one, establish interministerial coordination platform for DRR and climate change adaptation, and update and submit for enforcement the national DRR policy and standard operation procedures. To explore low-cost technological solutions for early warning, GIS mapping, and local hazard monitoring. And improve coordination and planning of DRR programs for funding across ministry and related agencies, as well as addressing good DRR governance by defining roles and responsibility the government and non-government stakeholders. To expand collaboration with the ASEAN, like the ADMER or ACDM, and the Asia Pacific and regional partners. Ensure that stakeholders, including donors, civil society organizations, international agencies, the private sector and communities understanding and align themselves and direction with the DRR planning. Ensure the mainstreaming of DRR strategic into sectoral and local development plans, policies, programs, and action. And promote public and private DRR investment for resilience and facilitating to access financial resource for institutional and bilateral cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think once you formally become part of the ASEAN, you will see that all these gaps, I think this is how the ASEAN member states has addressed together. And I'm hopeful and I'm quite confident that, Dr. Rianti's department, the Disaster Management and Humanitarian Affairs, DMHA, in the ASEAN Secretariat, but as well as the AHA Center, they certainly would be hands to hand and have been hands to hand with you as well, but formally, and I think you will get a lot of the benefit. Colleagues, I think we have another 12 minutes. I certainly would like to get back to my panelists, but perhaps a couple of minutes with you. Maybe quick questions, if anyone would you like to put to our panelists. It is the time for you to ask.
Yes. Can we have a female question, please?
Okay, so we have one. We have the mic. If you can just pass it on to her. Quickly introduce yourself and the quick question in either language.
Okay, my name is Ardanti. I'm from the AFD, or French Development Agency and Public Development Bank. I have a question for Ibu Rianti about the ASEAN. My question is how you work with the development partners, in particular with the Public Development Bank. That's all my question. Thank you.
Very straightforward, Dr. Rianti.
So thank you very much. AFD, France is one of our external partners. At the moment, of course, since we have 10 IMS, we have 10 countries that are our comprehensive partners. So there are different level of partnership within ASEAN. So we have our comprehensive development partners, sectoral development partners, and also some support that are provided. Of course, France is one of them. In terms of disaster management, as highlighted in ATMER, it's very clear that we need to have a multi-stakeholders cooperation, and the roles of banks as institutional and financial organization is one of the supports that we have been receiving and cooperating with. The World Bank, particularly at the moment, of course, the World Bank and Asian Development Bank are the two major organizations that have supported us. At the moment, I'm not sure, for example, if we have received support such as from AFD, but this is something that we can take further and discuss further. I know, I think a couple of months ago when the president was here, the French president was here with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, also head of AFD in the region and Indonesia. They are also looking forward to support, provide support in the strengthening disaster management and emergency response. One thing that I have to highlight, of course, our sector also focus on humanitarian assistance, provision of humanitarian assistance, and this is where the AHA Center has been the operational engine for the implementation of ATMER. A lot of supports that we receive from institutional finance and the organizations. Sometimes the donors or the partners want to see very tangible results. They see things are being brought to the people and community. This is where the cooperation with AHA Center has been very fruitful, and you can do it very quickly. And this is something that I would suggest to AFD to connect directly with the AHA Center should you want to see fast track engagement to show support for ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and just to supplement and congratulate AFD. Actually, ADPC has been collaborating with you, particularly in the Mekong region, and some of your work on urban disaster resilience. I think the unique thing about AFD as compared to the other bilateral and multilateral agency is that it's not only about the financial investment, but the kind of technological investment, the human resource expertise that AFD brings this region of ASEAN, particularly in the Mekong that I have seen by myself, is quite extraordinary. So thank you very much, and I think you continue to assist our member states in all possible way. Any other question? Okay, we have one on on this side, please.
Boleh saya dalam bahasa Indonesia saja ya? Untuk Pak Puji, Pak. Tadi saya sangat tertarik dengan paparan pengalaman sudah puluhan tahun menyadarkan masyarakat ya, supaya bahwa ini ketangguhan menangani bencana itu menjadi kewajiban yang melekat seharusnya ya. Saya sekian tahun yang lalu pernah juga terlibat di konsultansi untuk percepatan pembangunan sanitasi, Pak. Kayaknya ada kesamaan ya. Saya ingin saya tanyakan adalah ketika kita mengusahakan adanya local leadership dan tentu saja ada keterlibatan pemerintah daerah yang merupakan keharusan gitu. Itu mau tidak mau terkait dengan tupoksi, Pak. Kalau tupoksi harus melekat di dinas. Saya lihat DKI sudah ada ya, BPDB. Tapi saya tidak yakin sampai ke kabupaten kota Indonesia ada yang bisa dan mau membangun itu. Mau tidak mau harus menempel di dinas, Pak, supaya bagian di tupoksi wajib penanggulangan bencana. Nah ini menurut Pak bagaimana, Pak? Karena kalau tidak ada governance, tidak ada institusi, tidak ada anggaran, Pak. Tidak ada anggaran, ya tidak ada aktivitas. Kira-kira gitu itu. Bagaimana menyiasati hal itu supaya ini menjadi bagian dari tupoksi wajib di tiap pemerintah daerah, Pak. Terima kasih, Pak.
Can I respond directly to this, Hasan? Right. The question is that in the course of promoting disaster risk reduction all the way to the communities at the local level, there seems to be the necessity to establish a local office, a designated office for disaster management. Well, this may not be the case throughout Indonesia. So the question is, what's the push for that? This is my response to you. I am one among few individuals who still alive was the brain behind the disaster management law, as I am behind the ADMER conceptualization. Pointing to Indonesia case, we, in my generation, when we crafted that law, we also struggled with that question. Indonesia was at the advent of democratization in 2007. This country was reeling out of the reform at that time. The country decided to go for local autonomy, right? So it means all of the government business, not governance, all government business belongs to local government, except 5 very few. Foreign policy, fiscal and finance, all that. But the rest are local government. On that premise, disaster management and risk reduction must be the business of local government. Agree? It is a mandatory and concurrent task, and it is part of the basic services in the case of Indonesia. It cannot be stronger than that, okay? And BNPB was designed at the time to keep an arm's length from that process, because that process belongs to local government. BNPB is setting the standard, coordinating, getting the larger scenario, except in situations where the risk constitute national-wide risk, or beyond one provinces, or as such compelling that require national response. Otherwise, it's local government's business. Now, it narrows down to 2 questions. Should it be a specific office at the local government, like an office of disaster management, or should it be an interagency coordinating body? And we, the government, the parliament, including myself as a technical advisor in that process, we decided that it should not be the task of particular office, precisely because the risk pertains to everyone. If we give it to one office, the rest of the office will not do it, like the firefighting. Once we give it to the Department of Firefighting, then nobody else will do it. It's his job. Now, we want to avoid that one. The complication now with having BPBD or local level disaster management agency is that they don't have specific budget to do disaster management, which is rightly so, because the mainstream budget belongs to sectoral offices. Yeah? So those are the choice that was made consciously in the context of Indonesia at that time, as it is now. What needs to be fixed is not that setup, it's how it operates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have just 2 minutes, so I will seek apology and excuse from both Mr. Naeem and Mr. Marino if I just summarize, and then during the whole, because the way we have planned the entire day, that we have 2 very interesting upfront sessions and then 2 very important panel discussions that will have, and there will be an opportunity. So both either from the audience side, but we'll also ensure that we have some more dialogue with you, sir. So with this, I think, let me just conclude and thank all the panelists here, because I am more interested for the next 3 sessions that is coming. But just to summarize that, out of the 26 countries that where we operate, which is almost all the country in Southeast Asia and South Asia and some of those Pacific countries, we are very fortunate to act as a accelerator in a number of initiatives. You will actually hear some of the financing issue which was discussed yesterday on the pool financing concept, but also how effectively ADPC at the local level, both combining with private sector, with the local government and civil society organizations and national organization, is making very good progress. And for all our measures, we are very small contributor to the overall ASEAN framework for agreement for the disaster management, but we have been effective from time to time, bringing up new issues, then putting it into the country. So again, with this one, I just want to conclude and thank all the panelists, particularly Papuji, Dr. Rianti, Mr. Naeem, and Mr. Morino. And we wish to have a more healthier ASEAN community, more safer ASEAN community in the coming time. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pasla. Maybe one round of applause for the speakers and the moderator for the panel session 1. Thank you so much. And one more photo sessions with the moderator and the speakers. Thank you. Maybe second pose, ladies and gentlemen. The second pose, salam tangguh. Looking beautiful. Thank you very much.
There you have it, our panel discussion on governance, underscoring diverse governance mechanisms as well as the evolution of governance systems on DRR and resilience in the region. Thank you, Aslam, and to our panelists. Shifting now to the first upfront local innovation session. Okay. May I call on our presenter, Mr. Stefano Bresaola. On stage, please. Stefano is the head of the Mobility and Resilience Unit at the International Organization for Migration here in Indonesia. Stefano oversees humanitarian response, climate resilience, and mobility initiatives, including regular pathways and counter-trafficking efforts. He has over 12 years of experience leading resilience programs and has developed strategies to prevent and respond to migration crises, as well as manage complex initiatives in challenging environments. Stefano holds a Master in Science and International Relations from the University of Amsterdam, and is fluent in English, French, Dutch, and Italian. Stefano's presentation this morning will focus on the challenges and opportunities for scaling up innovations with a focus on early warning system. Plus, he will as well add other examples of innovations bolstered by IOM's Climate Catalytic Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stefano Bressola for the first Local Innovation Upfront session. Stefano, please.
Thank you very much. Selamat pagi, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the BNPB colleagues and ADPC colleagues for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm very happy to be in this room of experts. And so because you are experts, a lot more than me on the topic, I hope we will try to have a conversation. And I will try to limit my slides. Can we put up the slides? So we heard Pa Metrizam this morning calling for action, for concrete implementation. And this is a little bit what I would like to discuss with you today. So how do we operationalize the concept of sustainable resilience? Next. So first of all, why this is important? Yeah. Oh, thanks. Okay. So I work for IOM, the UN Migration Agency. So I'm showing you some displacement figures because we're very concerned about population displacement in disaster settings. 24 million people displaced in Asia Pacific in 1 year, last year. And that is families that are losing their homes, it's loss of work days, economic loss, etc., right? More than 3,000 climate-related, only the climate-related disaster events in Indonesia last year. And over 7 million people affected. So we know, and you all know, that it's something very, very important and that is impacting a lot of people. And those are the people that need the sustainable resilience. So we wanted to talk about early warning systems. And I was discussing this with my colleagues and some of my colleagues in the region working on disaster preparedness. And I wanted to frame this in a little bit broader terms. For the fact that in my discussion with colleagues, and it was mentioned earlier today, early warning systems are very important. But they are only useful when people know what to do after they receive the alert. So preparedness is equally important. And at the same time, what we really want is for people not to be affected at all. And so prevention and risk reduction should be very central to all of our work. And when we talk about innovation and local innovation in particular, which is the topic of this session, we see there are very interesting initiatives across the region at local level on these three aspects, on prevention and risk reduction, on preparedness, and on early warning systems. So it was already mentioned some of the frameworks that guide our work, so I don't need to repeat. We had a very good presentation about the ASEAN frameworks and also some introduction of the national frameworks. For the migration aspect, we refer to the Global Compact for Migration, of which Indonesia is a champion country, and that also foresees minimizing the adverse drivers of migration, and particularly displacement. So, I don't need to tell you this, but local communities are the ones facing the issue. And they're also very often the ones that know the issue best. People know what happens in their village or in their neighborhood. And very often they also, or always, they want to have some solutions, and they're very willing to work with other stakeholders to find the solutions. This, I think we all agree. So the local communities are very good advocates for risk reduction, for preparedness, for early warning systems. But then the question is, how can they be empowered to do more? And here, just quickly, I'm sure many of you can think about some very interesting local initiatives in your country or in Indonesia. I'm just mentioning a couple just to make this more real for you, but there's so many. These are all from Indonesia, but there are certainly many in other countries. In Semarang, a community built an SMS alert system for flooding. In Pacitan, this is actually an IOM-supported activity. We conducted a participatory contingency planning involving technical experts, the local BPBD, and community representatives from many, many villages. In the north coast of Java, where we know coastal flooding is a big issue, there are initiatives for nature-based solutions based on mangrove restoration. Those are all community-led, locally led initiatives, which have very good potential, which received very good response, very good results. And then you may ask yourself, why are we seeing more of this? We want to see more of this. So here is where I come to your side, because as I said, this is a room full of experts, and I'm not the expert. So how do we scale up this local innovation? What do you think, in your experience, are some of the elements or some of the challenges for those innovative local initiatives that show good results? Why we're not doing that all over the place? Okay. Anybody? What can be some of the challenges? Anyone? You were expecting me to talk all the time. I can talk for a very long time. I mean, I'm a good talker. No one? I'm gonna call in my IOM colleagues otherwise, huh? Okay, I'm gonna call in my IOM colleagues to break the ice. Vishnu, tell us, what can be one of the challenges?
Probably the most pressing challenge for now is funding opportunities, limited funding opportunities, perhaps.
Very good. Do you agree? Yes. It's not easy for local organizations to access funding. Funding comes with bureaucracy, right? So that can be one. What can be others? Do you think these local initiatives, community-based initiatives, do they always have the technical knowledge they need? Maybe not always, right? And for instance, in the Pacitan contingency plan example, that was what the community really valued. We didn't do anything for them. We just brought in some technical experts. And they did all the consultations, but they needed these technical experts, for example. Okay, anybody else? Yes, please.
I think another challenge that how to keep maintaining the consciousness or awareness of the community, because you know that disaster, nobody know when it come to them. So the challenge is how to maintain people or the initiator to keep their spirit on top that the disaster will come anytime, anywhere. So I think that's our challenge, and I want to talk to you how to overcome that problem.
Yes, thank you. This is a very important one, the awareness and the taking action. Even if we know something, it doesn't mean we do it, right? We know going to the gym is good, but maybe we don't go every day, right? And for communities that have many other needs, communities have many other needs, many other priorities. So how do we prioritize and keep prioritizing?
Activities, if they always keep awareness, but the disaster will never come. They don't know when the disaster will come. And for a long time, I think it will be a boring activity.
Yes. Good. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can summarize this quickly. So we didn't mention this in our discussion now, but maybe another element is the regulation, or let's say the policy space as it is framed here. But basically local actors need to have the regulation to back them up, right? And to have that space in the regulatory system to be able to implement their activities. We mentioned financing, and this can be in many different ways. There is, hopefully there will be more funding going into climate action, but then how does that funding reaches the community, the local initiatives? And the same for other sources of funding. Partnership. These are generally difficult things to do, right? It's not very straightforward to set up an early warning system, or it's not necessarily straightforward to set up a very effective risk reduction activity at the community level. It does often require other partners to come in. Certainly the local government to support the activity, but also, as I mentioned before, technical experts and for partners and stakeholders to work together, including the private sector, which is very important. And knowledge. So we mentioned before how some communities, they just lack the technical knowledge. But then if they receive that technical knowledge, then they're able to take it and go. So I believe this summarizes a bit, unless anybody has anything to add. And so, again, how do we avoid this, what is called the valley of death? Like there is a very good idea with a lot of potential, it's piloted, and then it just stays there. This shouldn't happen, right? That idea, we should have the tool, the resources, and the systems to bring it forward. So here, as I'm closing, I just want to refer quickly to recent work from IOM in partnership with BNPB to try to address this very issue that we are talking about. There are two tools that we've been working on. One is the risk index for climate displacement. That is a data tool. So what that does, it has been developed in partnership with the University of Indonesia. What that does is trying to identify the places at higher risk of displacement, in this case, to complement all the existing hazard mapping and risk mapping tools. And this is important because there are very big areas to cover. There are many communities. Indonesia is a very big country. Other countries in the regions have the same geographic challenge. So there needs to be a prioritization. And such tools can offer a good indicator to prioritize certain locations. And second, we've been working again with BNPB and with Kadin, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, on developing the Climate Catalytic Fund. This is a fund that aims at supporting small-scale, locally led initiatives that will prevent and reduce displacement. It's a matching fund. It's a one-on-one fund. So it requires local organizations to pool resources, either from local government, from private sector, from Zakat, from other sources, and then the fund is matched. Critically, the fund also offers an opportunity to provide technical support when needed to those local organizations to strengthen the proposal or the monitoring and verification systems. This is currently being piloted across 4 locations in Indonesia. We are receiving a lot of interest. It's very exciting to see. It's also being piloted in the Philippines at the same time, and in the Pacific also. So we hope that we will be able soon to see the results of the pilot, to see how such tools can support these innovative local action. We have a booth here at the corner, so if anybody is interested in knowing more, please come to us. So finally, to close, local innovation works. It really does. Communities know best. They know what is best for them. They just need the support to make it happen. Early warning systems are very important, but it cannot be a standalone. It requires preparedness work, and ideally, it requires a risk reduction framework, as you all know. And ecosystems. So by ecosystems, we mean the combination of those factors that we referred to before, from the regulation to the financing to the knowledge and technical capacity. That ecosystem needs to be in place for those local initiatives, not only to happen, but critically to be scaled up, to be brought to all other locations that have similar situation and similar needs. So again, from our side, I want to stress the importance of investing in those local innovation ecosystems to connect early warning to preparedness and prevention, and build a system where local innovation can thrive and can address the impacts of disasters. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Stefano. And so we have some time for question and answer. Do we have questions from the audience? We also have actually participants online. So if our online participants have any question, please have them, jot them down. And we will be showing the questions over the screen here. While waiting, we probably can ask the audience if there are questions. Anyone? From the online? Can we check online? All right. Okay. Going. Going. Gone. Clear. All right. So we would like to thank Stefano for his presentation. His presentation actually underscored challenges, okay, and opportunities of scaling up local innovations. He centered on early warning as an example, and of course ventured into a number of challenges which, some of you also highlighted, that's awareness, that's funding, and he came up with one, innovation, another innovation that's actually the work of IOM, and that's a Climate Catalytic Fund to bring about or support the work of communities. And the Climate Catalytic Fund has also many innovations in it because it actually drives it or driven by AI-powered, modeling, geospatial, technologies, as well as portals and chatbots. So I hope that gave you an idea of several innovations presented by Stefano and the challenges and a way of scaling up through financing undertaken by the International Organization for Migration. A round of applause for Stefano, please. All right, audience, this ends our morning session. You can take your break, have your lunch, and come back at 1:30. We will start with the panel discussion on finance, followed by local leadership, and then the last innovation presentation on nature-based solutions. A pleasant morning, everyone. Thank you.
Indonesia adalah sebuah negara yang memiliki kebudayaan yang beraneka ragam dengan alam yang begitu indah dan eksotis. Namun, di balik keindahan itu menyimpan sejuta bencana. Gempa bumi, tsunami, banjir, tanah longsor, puting beliung, kebakaran, dan bencana lainnya menjadi cerita panjang penuh duka. Bencana tentu saja akan berakibat fatal jika masyarakat tidak memiliki informasi yang cukup untuk melakukan kesiapsiagaan. BPBD atau Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Daerah Provinsi DKI Jakarta dan BNPB atau Badan Nasional Penanggulangan Bencana bekerja sama dengan JRC berusaha mengajak masyarakat Indonesia untuk memahami pentingnya peringatan dini bencana. Melalui teknologi, tanda-tanda datangnya bencana alam. DWS merupakan suatu alat yang dapat mengetahui kapan bencana alam akan datang, seperti banjir, tanah longsor, tsunami, dan lain-lain. Sehingga masyarakat berpotensi terkena bencana bisa mempersiapkan diri untuk evakuasi terlebih dahulu. DWS dikontrol dari Pusdalops BPBD yang berperan sebagai control center. Bila akan terjadi bencana, maka alat ini akan memberikan informasi berupa suara maupun sirine yang dapat didengar di stasiun remote melalui speaker yang telah terpasang di daerah potensi bencana.
Perhatian bagi warga yang tinggal di rawa buaya, ketinggian Sungai Angke sudah mencapai 1 meter. Bagi warga sekitar diharapkan berhati-hati akan terjadinya banjir.
Untuk area Kampung Melayu dan Bidara Cina, informasi yang disampaikan berupa ketinggian muka air di hulu Sungai Ciliwung, Pos Katulampa atau Pos Depok yang akan berupa siaga 3, siaga 2 maupun siaga 1. Dengan demikian, masyarakat bisa menerima informasi secara aktual dari Pusdalops sehingga mereka bisa mempersiapkan diri untuk evakuasi sebelum kedatangan air di lingkungannya. Alat ini juga menyampaikan informasi apa saja untuk masyarakat saat bencana maupun setelah bencana terjadi. Misalkan informasi tempat evakuasi, informasi bantuan untuk mengungsi, informasi kedatangan dokter, serta memberikan informasi kapan listrik PLN dipadamkan atau dinyalakan, dan informasi-informasi kebencanaan lainnya.
Ini merupakan proyek percontohan oleh salah satu perusahaan telekomunikasi Jepang yang bertujuan untuk pengendalian banjir dengan cara yang efektif. Cara kerja sistem ini adalah memberikan peringatan dini kepada masyarakat untuk segera menyelamatkan diri setelah mendengar informasi dari speaker.
Kami telah mendirikan pos-pos pemantauan tinggi muka air sungai untuk memberikan peringatan dini akan datangnya bahaya banjir. Namun, untuk menyampaikan informasi tersebut kepada masyarakat secara langsung, dibutuhkan stasiun speaker atau disaster warning system, khususnya pada daerah-daerah rawan banjir. Mengingat titik rawan banjir di Jakarta ada 125 kelurahan atau 634 RW, maka pemanfaatan stasiun speaker harus dikembangkan.
Badan Penanggulangan Bencana Daerah Provinsi DKI Jakarta telah memasang disaster warning system di 15 titik di 5 wilayah kelurahan DKI Jakarta, yaitu di Rawabuaya, Ulu Jami, Petogogan, Bidara Cina, dan Kampung Melayu. Hal ini sangat mendukung program BPBD dalam mewujudkan Jakarta baru.
Reduction is the most important international conference for preventing lives and livelihoods from disasters.
Terkait dengan kesiapan GPDRR yang akan berlangsung di Bali, secara keseluruhan kesiapan mulai dari pengamanan, antisipasi, kesiapsiagaan jika terjadi berbagai kemungkinan ancaman bencana sudah kami siapkan. Bahkan kemarin berbagai pihak, Polda Bali, Kodam 9 Udayana, dan kami di BPBD mengkolaborasikan pembagian tugas. Ketika terjadi sesuatu ancaman bencana, gempa, berpotensi tsunami, dan ancaman bencana lainnya, kita sudah membagi tugas. Pertama untuk evakuasi PPIP menjadi tugas dari Polda Bali. Kemudian evakuasi PIP adalah dari unsur TNI, Kodam 9 Udayana sampai dengan seluruh jajaran. Sedangkan kami di jajaran BPBD Provinsi Bali dengan semua komponen yang ada, termasuk unsur OPD terkait di Pemprov Bali, pemerintah kabupaten kota yang ada di Bali, termasuk mengakomodir relawan. Kami melakukan upaya evakuasi khusus untuk masyarakat publik di luar PIP dan PPAP tadi. Di sisi lain, ketika kita melihat kesiapan venue, kita sudah mempersiapkan lebih dari 1 tahun, karena memang kawasan ITDC Nusa Dua menjadi satu kawasan percontohan dalam rangka kesiapsiagaan. Kita mendorong semua hotel yang ada di kawasan ITDC Nusa Dua semuanya wajib mengantongi sertifikat kesiapsiagaan bencana di samping sertifikat CHSE di masa pandemi COVID-19. Kemudian dukungan di luar pemerintah daerah, kami menyiapkan unsur lembaga adat yang dalam hal ini adalah desa adat yang berada di seluruh venue acara, termasuk di kawasan ITDC Nusa Dua, termasuk daerah-daerah yang akan menjadi kunjungan field trip dan side event. Kita mengkolaborasikan tugas-petugas yang berasal dari desa adat yang kita sebut dengan Jero Pecalang.
Apa yang menjadi sasaran kita untuk melaksanakan CPDRR ini adalah kita bisa belajar dari negara lain dan kita bisa membawa sesuatu untuk negara lain juga. Jadi asas manfaat ini akan menjadi penting, kedaulatan kita, negara kita, belajar dari modalitas sosial yang kita bisa tularkan ke orang lain, dan bahkan kita bicara tentang teknologi, kita bicara tentang ilmu-ilmu yang lain, yang misalnya sektor-sektor yang lain, misalnya terkait dengan investasi dan terkait industrialisasi kebencanaan. Ini menjadi hal yang sangat penting untuk bisa kita pelajari dan kita terapkan. Jadi momentum inilah menjadi kesepakatan komitmen, terutama untuk negara-negara yang memiliki risiko terhadap bencana ini, bisa meminimalisi dan mencapai target apa yang menjadikan semangat global untuk mencapai itu berhasil dengan baik. Jadi itu yang harapan kami, kita bisa membawa sesuatu untuk dunia dan dunia bisa membawa kebaikan untuk bersama.
Ini merupakan tes untuk sistem
kami pun mudah-mudahan acara ini
lokakarya hasil kajian kerentanan kapasitas.
Tema kita ini pelatihan penggunaan sosial media, pelatihan penggunaan sosial.
Mitra Bencana adalah organisasi sosial yang berkomitmen dalam perlindungan dan pengelolaan lingkungan hidup, khususnya di wilayah pesisir dan pulau-pulau kecil di Provinsi Lampung. Dengan visi mewujudkan pengelolaan sumber daya alam yang adil, demokratis, dan berkelanjutan, Mitra Bencana menjalankan berbagai program yang memperkuat kapasitas personel dan kelembagaan serta memberdayakan komunitas untuk mengelola sumber daya alam secara mandiri. Dalam 1 tahun terakhir, Mitra Bencana melaksanakan kegiatan pengurangan risiko bencana atau PRB di Lampung Selatan, khususnya di Desa Maja dan Desa Klawi. Kegiatan ini didukung oleh ADPC melalui program Penguatan Kemitraan untuk Ketahanan Komunitas di Indonesia dan Timor Leste atau SPRINT. Program ini bertujuan untuk mengatasi tantangan pembangunan di wilayah dampingan dengan memanfaatkan peluang yang ada, serta mendorong tindakan yang dipimpin oleh masyarakat melalui pendekatan PRB berbasis komunitas yang inklusif dan terintegrasi. Program SPRINT dirancang untuk meningkatkan kapasitas kelembagaan, kepemimpinan, teknis, dan pengorganisasian organisasi lokal di wilayah dampingan agar mereka dapat membangun komunitas yang tangguh terhadap bencana. Dengan adanya program ini, diharapkan dapat mengurangi penderitaan akibat bencana, mengurangi ketergantungan pada organisasi eksternal, serta mempercepat pemulihan pasca bencana dengan lebih tangguh dan ramah lingkungan. Dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan PRB, Mitra Bencana juga melibatkan kelompok rentan, termasuk perempuan, ibu hamil, lansia, disabilitas, dan anak-anak dalam pengambilan keputusan di setiap tahap program. Pendekatan ini bertujuan untuk menciptakan masyarakat yang lebih siap menghadapi bencana melalui pendekatan yang inklusif, terpadu, dan multidisiplin. Mitra Bencana melaksanakan kegiatan PRB yang berfokus pada 5 tujuan utama. 1. Membangun dan meningkatkan kapasitas serta kepemimpinan masyarakat dalam PRB dan ketahanan iklim. 2. memperkuat kapasitas organisasi masyarakat sipil atau CSO dan organisasi berbasis masyarakat atau CBO dalam mendukung PRB berbasis komunitas. Tiga, pengembangan rencana aksi masyarakat yang inklusif dan partisipatif oleh komunitas. Empat, implementasi proyek prioritas atau PIP oleh komunitas.
Cari alat yang ada di lingkungan rumah.